and I am going to read a few shorter ones that I have found that I think we will enjoy. The first story we're going to read today is Please Stay Awake, and this is written by J.T. Grogan. Dark, cold and eerie, those are the only words I can come up with to describe the house in which I had lived with my family for the majority of my life. Mostly dark, blistering cold during the winter, and always eerie. Sometimes there would be strange noises coming from the cellar too. It had often given me the creeps, though I would never admit that to my mother. I'd figured I was too old to let some silly noises scare me anyway. I'd been trying to act like the man of the house ever since my dad left when I was 7. I had always hoped I would never turn out like my father, whom I hated with a burning passion. As far as he goes, I suppose I better just leave it at that. I lived in the house with my mother, Linda, and my Uncle Kevin on a vast piece of land in Steinen, Indiana. Steinen was a tiny piece of shit in the middle of nowhere. Not my opinion, by the way, just says that in the story. Nobody liked living there. I didn't have any friends because I was homeschooled, and I'd never ever seen another kid my age in Steinen, since we were almost never left the house unless my mom had to go into town to buy groceries. However, I was always very close to Uncle Kevin. When I was little, he would tell me ghost stories right before bed, which my mother hated. "Stop it, Kev, you're going to give him nightmares," she would snap. Oh, I did get nightmares, indeed, and sometimes it seemed as though the nightmares refused to end. They crept into the back of my mind like a spider crafting its web. The story he told me most often was one about the monster with a contorted body and black eyes. According to the legend, as Uncle Kevin called it, even though I knew he made it up himself, the monster would come into your room if you were awake past your bedtime and hide in your closet, watching you the whole night. Of course, this was just a silly little tale that Kevin would tell me so I wouldn't stay up late. Even so, I can't tell you how many times that horrible creature has popped into my head over the years. On this particular night, I decided to go to bed early in an attempt to sleep off a pounding headache. I lied down to my icy bed and sank underneath the covers, hiding my face from whatever may have been lurking inside my head. After setting my glasses down on the nightstand beside my bed, I reached over and flicked the light off. The darkness made me feel alive in a very strange way, almost as though I was mesmerised by the nothingness. As I looked around the room, seeing almost nothing but the pitch black darkness surrounding me, I felt entranced, as if something was forcing me to look. Of course, there was nothing to look at least not with the eyes. This was something you could only witness within the deepest corridors of your mind, the part of your mind that you always dread visiting and can never seem to return from. Out of nowhere, I began to hear scratches upon the window above my bed. My eyes immediately burst open, and I felt like I was unable to close them again. What the fuck was that? I asked myself. Nothing. Of course, it was nothing. It couldn't have been anything. Right. Just my mind playing tricks on me in the dark. No big deal. But in a moment of childish curiosity, I decided to peer out the window just to make sure I was hearing nothing more than a tree branch brushing up against the glass. But then it hit me like a bag of bricks. There is no tree next to my window. Still, I decided it would be better to sleep it off and think more about it in the morning. It was probably all in my head. It had to be. I found it unusually difficult to fall asleep that night, as if somebody or something was trying to keep me up. I woke up the next morning with that sound still locked in my brain. It had to have been coming from somewhere, but where? Shit, I had no idea. But then I remembered. The cellar. I built up as much courage as I could muster and slowly crept down into the abyss. Jesus, I hadn't been down there in a year, maybe longer. I'd almost forgotten what it looked like. Nothing but clouds of cobwebs and stacks of cardboard boxes shoved against the walls. I rustled through a couple of boxes until I stumbled upon a picture I'd drawn when I was a child. It was a sketch of a grotesque creature. It definitely wasn't human. This thing barely even had a face, just dark black eyes and no mouth. Its body was tall and thin and was contorted into a shape that I had never seen before. The more I looked at the drawing, the more I was reminded of that story my uncle used to tell me. It appeared to be raining above the creature, and towards the bottom of the paper I had scribbled, "Please stay awake," in giant letters. I didn't know what the hell that was supposed to mean, but I folded up the paper and stuffed it in my pocket. I quickly made my way up the staircase into the kitchen and went about my day as usual, keeping that drawing in my mind, trying to remember what it meant and why I'd drawn it in the first place. I looked outside and noticed that it had begun to rain. I didn't want to think about that creature any longer, so I walked into my dimly lit room and plopped onto my bed. I fell asleep before I even knew it. When I awoke, it was exactly 3 a.m. The farm was soaked with rain from earlier in the evening. The moon was full and radiant. It almost didn't look real. For an instant I glanced out of my bedroom window and I could swear I saw something walking quickly through the yard. When it spotted me, it slunk behind a tree, as if it were trying to hide from me. It looked exactly like what I had drawn when I was a child. I ran into Uncle Kevin's room and began shaking him awake. "Kevin, Kevin," he rubbed the room out of his eyes. "What's up, bud? It's late," he asked, bewildered at my excitement. I looked him in his bloodshot eyes and softly said, "I saw someone in the yard." Kevin looked at me with hesitation. "No, you probably just saw an animal. Get back to bed." I know what I saw. This was no animal, or at least not one that I had ever seen, not even in my worst nightmares. I knew I couldn't tell him exactly what I had seen, as he would never believe me. "No, Kevin, it was not an animal. Please, it was a man. I think. Look, just please go out and check." Uncle Kevin leapt up and grabbed his shotgun from under the bed. "All right, come on, show me where he is. Let's try not to wake your mom. I'll scare it off." We went outside and pointed to the tree. I whispered to Kevin. I saw him go behind that tree. My uncle bravely walked up to the tree and peered around it. Nothing. He searched the entire farm for well over half an hour, but he never found anyone or anything. "Let's go back in, bud. There's no one out here. Keep the doors locked tonight." He was wrong. I knew there was something out there. I crawled into bed and threw the covers over my face. I could hear the blistering wind coming from outside. It pierced my ears with a whistle that I thought only dogs could detect. Suddenly, I heard tapping upon my window. The sound grew louder with each tap. I tightened my blankets around my body. The taps slowly turned into knocks. Louder and faster the knocks became. The knocks turned into bangs. I thought the glass was going to break. Then out of nowhere, it stopped. No more more taps, no more knocks, no more bangs, no more wind. I was relieved. Suddenly, I hear a low, chilling voice in my ear. Please stay awake. It couldn't be. No, it couldn't be. I ran into the hallway, ready to make my way to my mother's room when I saw it. Whatever it was, I still don't know. It was holding Kevin's lifeless, mangled body in its arms. Carved deeply into my uncle's torso were the words, "Please stay awake." I tried to let out a scream, but only silence filled the dead air. I sprinted through the door of my mother's bedroom and saw her body lying in the middle of the floor. She was covered in blood, and her left arm had been ripped straight out of its socket. Written next to her in her own blood were the words, "Please stay awake." I began to sob, and when I turned around, the creature was gone. I don't know where the hell it went, and I'm not sure I want to. I closed my eyes as tightly as I could and let out the loudest scream I could muster. I called the police and lied down on the cold, now blood-soaked floor, waiting for them to arrive. It felt like hours. Finally, the police showed up to find me in the fetal position next to my mother's corpse. I told them everything I saw. I showed them my drawing. I told them about the taps, the knocks, and the bangs, but of course they wouldn't hear a word of it. Why would they? All they could see was a lonely kid hovering over his dead mother, her blood covering my clothes almost as much as it covered the floor. It's cold in this cell. It's dark and lonely. The silence is the only saving grace. Constant, peaceful silence. Tonight it's raining outside. It's colder, darker, and wetter than ever. But unfortunately, I must stop writing now. I just heard a tap on my window. The next little story is called Her Silence, and it's written by Cat Crane. He turns the steering wheel in different directions, taking different roads when he needs to. He needs to go through the woods to get to his destination. He's confused, but not about that. What confuses him is why his sister is being so silent as she sits in the back seat. The time is currently 6:36, and he just picked up Emily from her friend Julia's house. He was thankful he didn't have to get out of the car and knock on the door, as she was already standing out in the yard waiting for him. He had tried making conversation with her. How did it go at Julia's? Did you have fun? Has her rabbit gotten any better? But everything he said was met with silence. It weirds him out, and he grows slightly concerned. Is she okay? But an uncomfortable knot forms in his stomach when he glances in the rearview mirror and sees her staring at him, or more specifically, the side of his neck, with what looks like hunger in her eyes. Are you alright, Em? She doesn't reply. He looks back again when he hears an odd sound coming from her, and sees her licking her lips. What are you doing? No answer. He lets out a shaky sigh before reaching and turning the radio on to put some music in the car and distract him from the situation. Eventually, they pull up in the driveway and he stops the car, unbuckling and opening his door. He looks back and she's still sitting there, unmoving, but her eyes follow him. Come on, Emily, you can't stay out here. What are you doing? Nothing. Seriously, what has gotten into you? You haven't said a word. No sound leaves her mouth as she unbuckles, opens the door and steps out of the car. He runs his hand through his hair in slight confusion and relief before reaching back in the car and grabbing his phone out from the little slots behind the cup holder. He presses the button as he closes the door and heads towards the front door of the house, his sister following behind. 2 missed calls and 12 unread messages from Emily. What? He mutters, confusion lacing his voice. Why was she texting me, he thinks. When was she texting me? The time now reads 7:13. He feels uneasy, like something's not quite right, but he doesn't know what exactly. Pulling out the key and sticking it into the hole in the knob, he opens the door and walks inside. When he looks behind him, Emily isn't there. Emily, he raises an eyebrow as he turns to look for her. Emily, where'd you go? He doesn't see her. He suddenly sees an Emily-shaped shadow walk into the yard, and he follows. What are you doing? You know you're... But he stops. Nobody's there. This feeling of dread hits him in the chest as he looks out into the dark woods beside his house. He sees a figure standing just behind the outline of the trees. It's short, with long hair, just like Emily. This isn't right. Has she lost her mind? Maybe it's him that's losing his mind. Chills run up his spine as he walks closer to her. Emily, what are you doing? She turns and runs out of sight. This doesn't make sense. She's usually terrified of the woods, especially at night. There's no way she'd go in there unless something was wrong. Without thinking, he takes off into the trees. He doesn't know what's going on, but he isn't going to let Emily get herself into danger. He turns the flashlight in his phone on as he pushes past all the weeds in his way and avoids tripping over anything. Emily, he calls, come out right now. His head turns when he hears a twig snap. Come on, Emily. If this is some kind of prank, it's not funny. The tension rises beneath him as complete silence fills his ears. Oh no, is it a bear or a panther? He shines the flashlight in every direction, trying to see something, anything. He can feel his breath quickening. Is Emily okay? Snap. Another twig. No, 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 no. He's not going to leave her out here alone. He's going to find her, even if he dies trying. He feels his phone buzz against his palm and he looks at the screen. Another text from Emily, and he lets out a relieved breath. At least she's still alive. He opens his messages and reads over what she said before letting out a confused and fearful gasp. Crack. This time it's the leaves, and it comes from directly behind him. His hand shakes as he slowly turns around and lays eyes on her. A low growl. A scream. Silence. His phone buzzes and glows from the ground. 6:34. Dude, what happened to picking me up? 6:36. Mike, answer me. 6:37. What are you doing? 6:41. Idiot, please reply. 6:43. Mike. 6:50. Mike. 7:02. Mom isn't answering either. 7:05. Somebody please reply. 7:11. Come on. 7:14. I can't stay at Julia's forever. 7:16. Are you alive, Mike? 7:20. Talk to me. 7:34. I'm coming. I don't quite understand the ending of that one. If someone understands it, please explain it to me. I don't get that one. The next little story is called Pass It On, and this is written by Emma Fro. It's quite an interesting concept, those little pass it on messages. I mean, chain letters and people telling you, post this in 5 different comments or else you'll die tonight. Interesting indeed, but that idea lacks originality. It's the same story with each one. Pass it on or die. People pass it on and they go on living a happy ending for everyone. But what if there was a little twist? Let's say that there's a photo out there. It's not one of those can't be found anywhere else type of pictures. It's actually really easy to find. Just use your chosen search engine and type in black and white photo of twins. You should be presented with a variety of different black and white photos of twins, but let me help and tell you what to look for. You're looking for a picture of 2 twin girls wearing black dresses and white headbands. The twin on the left has a straight face, while the one on the right is smiling. Found it? Good. Now, as you'll see, there's nothing particularly unnerving about the photo. It may be a little creepy, but other than that, it looks as normal as any other picture you've ever come across. Now, here's the twist. If you do pass it on, you'll die. Now, I know most of you, given this particular set of choices, would choose to leave the picture be, but allow me to elaborate upon what happens when you don't pass it on. If you leave it alone after seeing it, you'll have nightmares. I know. Bad dreams don't sound so bad when you're compared to the alternative, but trust me, it gets worse. It all begins with something simple. Before long, you'll see the twins standing side by side in the darkness. The girl on the left will leave, and you'll be left alone with her smiling twin. And just before you wake up, she'll whisper, "Pass it on," and her smile will widen ever so slightly. I know, it doesn't sound like much of a nightmare. The first of many, it's fairly subtle, but with each successive nightmare, things begin to change. Gradually, the smiling girl gets closer and closer to you, while her smile widens to impossible lengths. You won't be able to help but feel greatly disturbed and unsafe when it happens. Don't worry, that's normal. What's next, however, not so much. You'll try to wake yourself up, you'll try to move, but nothing will work. You find yourself trapped. She'll bring out various instruments, a knife, chains, gasoline, matches, many devices to make you feel uneasy. Then you panic. You can't help but think of all the horrible things this twisted, sadistic child has in store for you. And does she ever have some horrible things in store for you? Let's take a moment to think about the possibilities. What do you think she'll do to you? Wrap the chains around your head and pull until your skull splits. Gouge out your eyes. Cut out your tongue. Slice off your ears. Burn you alive, knowing that you can't move. That and more, my dear. You take the term unimaginable torture too lightly until you fall asleep. If you think she'll lash you with chains, she'll do so only after she's laid them in fire and stuck railroad spikes in your back. If you think she'll burn you, she'll tear open your torso, pour gasoline into the wound, and then light the match. You'll wake up screaming. Your body will remember the pain it's endured while you quiver in fear. Every time you wake up, you'll notice subtle differences about your body. A bruise here, a scratch there. But as each nightmare gradually gets worse, so do the marks, which shall be left behind. Before long, the scratches will become fresh, bloody scars. If you dreamt that you took a sledgehammer to the knee, you'll wake and rise, only to find your you as pain surges through your kneecaps. All the while, her words linger in the back of your mind. You'll try to avoid sleeping, but it's no use. The twins make their way into your reality. They're always there. At your home, at your place of work, or at school. You would fight back, but their visage appears in place of the faces of your loved ones. Eventually you'll hide yourself away from everyone in an effort to avoid seeing these demonic children. It's all in vain, however. You'll see them in that millisecond of darkness when you blink. You'll see them in reflections and in your peripheral vision. You'll see them everywhere. Soon enough, you won't be able to distinguish your dreams from reality. You'll awake from one torturous experience only to be greeted by alternative horrors. Without realising it, you've given the twins a new playmate. And do they ever like to play? Well, at least one does. While one plays with you, the other will stand there watching, chanting, "Pass it on," over and over again, all while ignoring your cries for help. There's no happy ending to be had. Should you remain optimistic, I'm afraid you're just as naive as those who came before you. And there are many, oh so many, and you won't be the last. I've made certain of that. Now, you have a decision to make. Now that you've seen the picture and discovered the consequences, whatever shall you do? Might you leave the picture be and pray that this was just some twisted story, or will you decide to pass it on? The next story is called Colin's Corner, and this is written by Andrea Carroll. I usually like to watch TV with my little sister Kimberly. She was only 5, so of course she watched all the cutesy kids shows. I didn't really mind though. They made her happy and I liked spending time with her. She watched shows like Dora, Blue's Clues and Arthur. We often had a lot of DVDs of old kids shows around the house that we would watch. There was a large box of old movies and TV shows in the attic, but none of them looked like they would appeal to her. One day, Kimberly was at a doctor's appointment, and I thought I'd have time to watch a movie aimed more towards my age range. So I thought this would be a good time to look through the box of old movies in the attic. While I looked through the box, I noticed that these movies didn't really interest me, but I kept looking in hopes to find something. Then I saw at the bottom of the box a DVD labelled Colin's Corner. Many memories started to come back to me. I used to watch this show as a kid. It was about an orange puppet named Colin who lived in a house on the corner of a street. He would often have his other puppet friends come over to play games and sing songs. It was cute and innocent, and I remember really liking it as a kid. I thought this would be a good show for my sister and I to watch. When Kimberly got home, I told her I got us a new show for us to watch. She got excited and sat down on the couch while I put the disc in. I sat down next to her as the selection screen popped up. The screen looked just as I remembered it. It showed Colin and his friends in front of the house. I chose the first episode and the theme song began. I was a little confused. The colours were a lot darker than I remember, and the song was sung a lot slower and in a deeper voice. I didn't think much of it as I hadn't seen the show in a long time, and I probably forgot some elements of it. The show was pretty normal. Colin was in his house and said hello to the viewers. There was a knock on his door and he said, "I think my friends are here." When he opened the door, I felt my heart in my throat. Standing at the door were 2 tall white puppets with nose or mouth. White puppets only with pitch black eyes. I was shocked because I don't remember these characters on the show. Even the cover of the DVD showed two colourful, friendly puppets. I looked over at Kimberly and she had this big smile on her face. I was confused, since an image like that would terrify a child. I'm not sure if we should watch this anymore, I told her. No, please, keep it on, she exclaimed. I continued watching, as the giant puppets didn't seem to faze her. The two large puppets came into the house. Colin asked, "What do you guys want to do today?" The one puppet replied with the most horrific sound I ever heard. It sounded like a man shouting, almost screaming in a strange language. The audio was very distorted. At this point, I got up and ejected the disc from the VCR, much to Kimberly's disappointment. "Why did you stop it? Put it back on," she said. I didn't listen and put the DVD in a drawer. Even though Kimberly wasn't bothered by the show, I still thought it was too disturbing for a 5-year-old. I had trouble sleeping that night. I kept thinking about the video. I watched that show all the time when I was younger. I definitely have seen every episode. I didn't understand why I didn't remember an episode like this. I was still curious about the rest of the episode. I decided to go downstairs to finish it. I took the DVD out of the drawer and put it in the VCR. I put on headphones so the noise wouldn't disturb my family. The episode began the same, with the strange intro and the large puppets. After the one puppet made the terrifying sound, Colin replied, "You're right, we should play a game." He then grabbed a knife off of the counter. It cut into the live action arm painted orange to represent Colin's. The knife went up to the arm and started to cut slits, each one deeper than the last. Colin started to scream, a blood-curdling scream. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I felt sick to my stomach. Blood gushed out of the wounds as the screams got louder and louder. The episode ended with him falling to the ground as the two white, tall puppets looked directly into the camera with pitch black eyes. I was utterly terrified at this point. I immediately ejected the DVD and threw it in the trash. I couldn't sleep at all that night. I kept thinking about that episode. I got up the next morning and went downstairs to get some breakfast. I walked past Kimberly's room and saw that she wasn't in there. When I got downstairs, I saw her on the couch, finishing up the horrific episode I watched last night. I immediately grabbed the remote and turned the TV off. "Why did you do that?" she asked. "Where did you get the DVD?" I shouted. "It was in the garbage," she yelled. "I took it out because I wanted to finish the episode." "This show is very bad," I shouted. "No, it's not," she said. "They were just baking a cake." "What?" I said. "The episode was about Colin and his friends baking a cake." "What did his friends look like?" I asked. "One was blue and one was red," she replied. "I really liked it. Can I watch it again?" It wasn't a reindeer. This is written by Michael Page. "Christ," I muttered to myself as the first flakes of snow started to fall. They gathered in fuzzy clumps over the windshield before my wipers cleared them away. I'd been waiting for 20 minutes now in my sister's driveway. I had chosen to wait inside with her. I'd have been dead by now, thanks to her 2 grey cats. Cute little devils, but murder to my sinuses. Puffy eyes and a clogged up throat. That's just what I need. Christmas, our family made the annual trip to my grandparents' cabin tucked away in the woods of Hope, Alaska, and I'd hoped to beat the heavy snowfall that was forecasted. Since my sister's license was suspended from a DUI, here I was, a hostage to time, with my finger tapping anxiously on the steering wheel. When my mother had asked me to be the one to grab my sister, I'd honestly dreaded it from the start. It wasn't that we hated one another, we just weren't close anymore. After decades of constant arguments and bitter disagreements, we became distant and our relationship fizzled. Yes, we were siblings, but it felt more accurate to call us the residue of what siblings once were. Finally, like the gates of Valhalla, her front door opened and out she came. Her hair was forest green. The last time I'd seen her, it had been white. The time before that, it was violet. Got everything? I asked as she clambered her way into the passenger seat. She responded as she adjusted her glasses and stuffed a few bags in the back seat. And just like that, we were off. Hope was about a 30-minute drive, and it didn't take long for the awkward silence to inflate between us. It didn't help that the radio didn't work in my car and that the broken auxiliary port made your music sound like it was having a seizure. By the time we reached the turnoff for Hope Highway, the road was turning into a thick white sheet. Thankfully, on Christmas Eve night, the long stretch to Hope's small community was quick and vacant. The cabin was tucked away in a fortress of trees 5 miles off the main road. As I made the turn, my sister cracked the window, pulled out a blunt, and lit it with her lighter. "Want a hit?" she asked. Snow crunched beneath us, not while I'm driving. It's a straight path, we're practically there already. She took a drag and blew it out the window. "I just want to focus on this, alright?" She huffed and pushed up her glasses. "If you're worried, maybe slow down a bit." There was the jab, another piece of bait to lure me into another fight. But I wasn't going to bite, not this time. She could live with us getting there faster. The drive was almost over, and soon I'd be in a warm living room with my feet up, a spiked eggnog in my hand, and Bobby Helms' Jingle Bell Rock in the air. I could already hear Uncle Jed spouting off one of his crude jokes. "Why does Santa have such a big..." "Dude," my sister shrieked, jabbing a finger in my side and whipping my mind back to the windshield. The car had just finished winding around the thick trail. The large body of a reindeer stood in our path. Eyes wide open and blank, it didn't move as the high beams found it. Snapped into a panic, I twisted the wheels in a desperate swerve. The car veered greasily to the side in a fine spray of slosh. The reindeer, also known as a caribou, remained still even as the bumper soared inches from its nose. We came to a crunching halt off the main path. "Jesus," I sighed, blessed with relief. "Did we hit it?" "No," my sister said, leaning out the window to check while exhaling another plume of smoke. I wound the steering wheel back around and pressed on the gas. The wheels shrilled in place, kicking up globs of sleet but not moving an inch. "Perfect," I moaned, and unfolded myself from the seat to check it out. The 2 front tires were caked in black slush and practically swallowed in a mound of snow. I kicked at it, trying to clear off the icy debris from the treads and beneath the wheel well. When that tired me out, I resorted to scraping it off with my fingers. "Screw off, Prancer," I heard my sister call towards the dark silhouette of the reindeer, its antlers like gnarled fingers reaching for the treetops. Then she made a sort of startled yip, followed by a "what the fuck?" I looked up from the scrim of snow. The reindeer was now standing tall on both of its hind legs. It looked strange, like a silly caricature you'd see in a kid's book. But out there, in the silence of the woods, it was a creepy image. The way its big shape stood still on just two legs held an almost human-like balance. For whatever reason, I realised then it didn't have a tail. Its muscular neck craned to the side and let out an ululating scream, a miserable squeal of metal grinding against metal. My legs were ice sculptures, cementing me to the spot as the shriek quieted to a succession of wet grunts. The reindeer dropped down to its original posture and stomped heavily. Puffs of white vapour and strings of snot vented from its nostrils. I was no hunter, but it didn't take a lot to tell when a pissed-off animal was about to charge. I leaped for the driver's seat, pulled the door open and slammed it shut just as the muffled thud of hoofs reached me. Antlers scraped the door as its large body practically flew over the patch I had just been standing in. Fast, very fast. My sister screamed as the large bulk of its frame wound back around and charged again, this time shattering the headlights and submerging us in darkness. "Just go already," my sister hollered in my ear. "I'm trying, goddammit," I hissed. The wheels continued to spin helplessly. We were trapped. The creature charged again, this time nailing the window. A cobweb of cracks bloomed near my sister's head. I searched for anything, literally anything, that I could use as a weapon. I was never really a gun enthusiast, but at that moment I'd have shaved my head and joined the secular monks if it meant having a Glock in my hand right there and then. After rattling the car once more, the reindeer finally appeared to lose interest and disappeared amidst the cluster of trees. Granted some time to breathe and think, we phoned our dad and told him about the situation. He was going to come down in his pickup and get us unstuck and out of this mess. I looked over at my sister, who was taking long and steady breaths between her fingers. "Are you all right?" I asked. "What do you think?" she grumbled. "I told you to slow down." Another jab, and this time I wasn't going to have it. "You want to be useful," I yelled. "Get out there and push." "No." "Then shut the hell up. I don't need it right now." She said nothing else, and neither did I, returning once again to the pocket of silence that our relationship succumbed to. The sooner Dad's headlights peeked in the distance, the better. Suddenly, she rolled down the window. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Shh," she pursed her lips. "Just listen." Humouring her, I waited, and sure enough, the sound reached me too. The quiet voice of a little girl coming from outside. "Somebody," it whimpered. "I'm lost. Please help me. I'm lost." My sister unlocked the door and motioned to open it. I grabbed her wrist. "What are you doing?" she snapped. "There's someone out there." "Just wait a second. It's weird, isn't it?" The boys continued to whine, choking between sobs and pleading for someone, anyone, to help her. I didn't like the way it sounded. The same lasting drawl between words, the same weeping sounds, like someone was hitting repeat on a speaker. Something wasn't right, and my instincts were hoisting red flags left and right. Then my sister looked at me and her expression warped into shock. She flung back, pinning both shoulders against the interior. Things that sounded like words bubbled up but didn't quite make it out of her throat. I turned and saw what was looking at me. It had the face of a man surrounded by the mottled fur of a caribou's body. The skin was a mummified brown colour, wound tightly around its long skull like old crinkled leather. Snowflakes landed upon its wide, expressionless eyes and melted into the dark membranes of its pupils. It circled the car, bobbing its antlers and fogging up the windows as it peered inside. My heart shook the walls of my throat. I locked eyes with my sister, unable to say anything behind the sheer disbelief. I should have grabbed my phone, snapped a photo, recorded a video, anything, but my thoughts were jangled. It then let out that same horrible scream, but I didn't see its tight, contorted lips open. The sound was coming from its neck. Small, fleshy orifices, flapping open like mouths, were converting the high-pitched shrill into the mimicked cry of a little girl. "Help me, I'm lost. Help me." Headlights glazed the area. My father's pickup came into view, paving its way down the path. The reindeer, or whatever it was, ran off, vanishing once again into the snow-covered thicket. Nobody believed us. Why would they? If anyone had told me that story, I would have assumed that they were hopped up on some crazy psychedelic. But the reality of what I saw was cold, and it's something I still to this day can't fully swallow. Instead of sleeping that night, my sister and I did some research that led us to the myth of skinwalkers, beings of some sort, capable of mimicking voices and disguising themselves as animals to lure people into the woods. After reading other accounts, there wasn't a doubt in my mind what we'd witnessed out there. Every so often that night, I'd stare out the window and eye the yard, wondering if I'd see that leathery face watching from the tree line. Neither I nor my sister ever made that trip again, much to the frustration of my family. But there was a silver lining. She and I have never been closer. I hope you enjoyed these little stories. I loved them. I thought they